Welcome to the fourth video in our tutorial for flying the A320 aircraft. At this point, we have prepared our entire flight deck for departure, including the FMGS. We only have one major job left to do prior to departure, and that is conduct a departure briefing. This sounds simple, but an effective departure briefing is crucial to a safe departure. There are many purposes for a departure briefing. By outlining these purposes for you, you'll be able to give a much more effective departure briefing. Even if you are only flying by yourself, an effective departure briefing gives you the chance to verbalize your plans and ensure everything is configured as expected to follow your plan. An effective departure briefing ensures all crew members share a common idea of what will happen, so there are few surprises. During an effective departure briefing, not only is the plan reviewed, but unusual procedures and possible threats are also reviewed and mitigation strategies designed to ensure the safest possible flight. By ensuring everyone has reviewed all the relevant material, this also frees up all the crew members to better monitor for and recognize unexpected situations and react accordingly. Good briefings do not have to be long, but long briefings are not bad either. The key is to tune the briefing to the day's situation, considering whether the crew is experienced or new to the aircraft, whether the airport is a familiar home base or a foreign airport, and if weather or aircraft defects may cause higher than normal workload. By considering all the different possibilities prior to leaving the gate, the crew can make decisions quickly during the high workload situations before, during, and immediately after takeoff. Prior to actually conducting the briefing, review the charts and confirm they match the FMGS programming. Once the briefing starts, it should not need to be interrupted just to verify FMGS programming. For departure, we should start by considering the aircraft and airport. Highlight any MELs and ensure the procedures are reviewed, pre-flight procedures are complete, and any future implications are considered and discussed. For the airport, highlight any NOTAMs that affect departure, including closed taxiways, offline nav aids, or amendments to departure procedures. Next, a review of the charts is in order. Some airlines like to have a planned taxi route, while others don't like to review the taxi route to avoid confirmation bias. Having some idea of the likely route is helpful, but ensure you listen to the taxi clearance carefully, even at familiar airports. The captain should also announce if single-engine taxi is intended or not. Review the SID chart by announcing the procedure title and airport name, confirming that it is valid for the planned runway. Highlight any unusual notes. It is not necessary to read every restriction on a SID if we have already reviewed the FMGS. However, it is critical to ensure that the top altitude is determined and verify it is set correctly. When reviewing the charts, check for any noise abatement procedures listed for the departure airport and review the company route manual for notes relevant to our planned departure. Minimum visibility for departure should be reviewed for reduced and low visibility operations, as well as company-specific engine out procedures. If nothing is listed, the pilot's engine failure plan should be stated explicitly to ensure all crew members understand what will happen in the event of an engine failure. Now we will brief our FMGS takeoff page by reading and confirming all the relevant settings for the takeoff. Continuing our discussion of the takeoff procedure, ensure climb blue and nav blue for the fully managed departure, or confirm the lack of nav blue if a heading is to be flown on departure. Announce the planned use of autoflight, primarily when the autopilot is planned to be engaged. Review on the FMGS the RadNav page to confirm any required nav aids are hard-tuned, else auto-tuning is fine. Review the fuel prediction page to see our takeoff weight and determine if an immediate return would require an overweight landing. Finally, review what has been entered in the secondary flight plan for crew awareness. The final and probably most important aspect of the departure briefing comes at the end, the threat briefing. In the threat briefing, all crew members will identify any possible threats to a safe departure and, more importantly, identify mitigation strategies to reduce or eliminate the risk posed by the threat. For example, a common threat at many airports is a very short taxi out. This may not allow sufficient time for all the checklists and may force the first officer to be heads down while the aircraft is turning and maneuvering on a tight apron. The mitigation could be to conduct some of the before takeoff checks that require excess heads down time, such as the flight control check, prior to actually starting taxi. Taxiing slower will also ensure the first officer and the cabin crew have a reasonable time frame to complete all the required duties. For the threat briefing, the lead is usually transferred to the pilot monitoring to analyze threats in the pilot flying's plan. Once the pilot monitoring has announced all their threats and they have been mitigated as much as possible, the pilot flying may also identify additional threats that they deem relevant. There is no such thing as too many or too few threats. However, complacency can also be considered a threat when the flight is so routine that no other threats are identified. Now that we've given a basic overview of how a departure briefing is conducted, let's put it together with a sample briefing for our flight today. Because this briefing is being conducted single pilot, I will also conduct my own threat briefing at the end, but you will be able to get a good sense of the flow. The technical status of the aircraft today is that there are no known defects and no MEL review is required. The airport has taxiway golf closed by NOTAM, but that should not affect our planned taxi route, and there is a NOTAM about the Cascade 3 SID, but for the Deschutes transition, which is not our transition today. Our anticipated taxi route is going to be either Mike Echo or Tango down to Bravo, and we will have to cross runway 03. Single engine taxi out will not be used due to the anticipated short taxi. The SID is the Cascade 3 RNAV departure from runway 10 right. No special notes, routing and constraints are all as published, with a top altitude as assigned by ATC. We're going to say that ATC issued us a 6,000 foot top altitude, so 6,000 feet is set on the FCU. There are no published noise abatement procedures for this airport. Takeoff visibility is not an issue today, and the engine failure after departure will be to climb to 400 feet, then a left turn direct the BTG VOR and hold, climbing to 6,200 in the hold. Takeoff performance for today. This will be a left seat departure off of runway 10 right. No takeoff shift for a full length departure. Flaps 2 departure with a flex temperature of 64 degrees. V1 147, VR 147, V2 150 with a standard transition altitude of 18,000, and thrust reduction acceleration and engine out acceleration are all showing 1020 for the noise 2 departure. Departure is fully managed. Currently we have alt blue and nav blue. Autopilot will be engaged by 1,000 feet. The RADNAV page is auto-tuning. The fuel prediction page shows that we are over max landing weight, so an immediate return will require flaps 3 and packs off, and the secondary flight plan has an immediate return onto runway 10 right. Do you have any questions, and can you think of any threats? Threats for today's flight include a runway crossing on our taxi out. This may require holding the checklist when we approach the runway, and both pilots will have to confirm that they have heard an ATC instruction to cross the runway. If any doubt exists, we'll stop and confirm with ATC. Terrain is also a threat in the Portland area. This will be mitigated by identifying areas of high terrain on the chart, which is mostly to the east and north of the field, and reviewing the MSA so we know when the threat diminishes. We'll also ensure that at least one pilot is using the train on ND switch on departure to ensure that we have awareness of where the train is relative to our flight path. Those are all the threats I have for today, including some mitigation strategies. Do you have any further questions? And that is a demonstration of an effective departure briefing. The exact format may vary from the one shown here, and will definitely vary from airline to airline and even pilot to pilot, but they all achieve the same outcome. In this one, we specifically defined our plan of action for the departure phase of flight, and identified and mitigated various elevated risks to our flight. Departure briefings do not need to be long, but they must ensure all of us, including ourselves as the pilot, understand exactly what will happen in order to better identify deviations from the plan as it proceeds and be able to react accordingly. With the departure briefing behind us, we are finally ready to leave the gate. Make sure the APU is running, and when the cabin is secure, close the boarding door so we can get underway in the next video.